Evolution has a reputation for being creative, and it really is, but not because it understands what it needs to develop. Sometimes its decisions seem completely logical and well thought out, and sometimes they seem overly complicated and weird, as if one simply needs to get out of the current circumstances by any means. To better understand why this happens, we can use evolutionary models, genetic algorithms. These are programs for problem solving, optimization, and search using biologically inspired processes, mutations, crossbreeding, and selection. Today we'll explore how to model evolution and what exactly we can learn from it. And we'll do this using the graph unfolding cellular automata, GUCA, an artificial life substrate specifically designed to explore complexity and discover patterns in it. GUCA is a program that defines the growth or even behavior of a graph using discrete rules, such as creating new nodes and connecting and disconnecting different nodes from each other. This happens in a similar way to how the genetic code determines the growth of an organism through a set of genes. Last time, we built different structures manually using these rules, but the interesting part begins when you entrust the process of creation to evolution. Using evolutionary selection, we can subject an entire population of random structures, or organisms, to mutations, evaluate them according to given criteria, and select the fittest for the next generation. We repeat this process over and over. After many cycles, our genetic algorithm finds a solution to the problem. But what specific tasks can be set for such an algorithm, and how exactly will it solve them? Well, true evolution creates organisms based on natural conditions, but here we create the environment ourselves, so we can ask for anything, and the result will depend on how well we formulate our goal. So, let's consider a problem that, on the one hand, is easy for humans to understand and evaluate, but on the other hand, is quite complex and difficult for both evolution and manual rule creation. Our task will be to construct a square mesh. We can imagine what it looks like and easily draw it if asked, but our evolutionary program only understands the numbers it compares fitness to. We will translate our abstract problem into a fitness function. It is a number that reflects specific criteria that are important to us and can be quantified. This number is what's used to select organisms for future generations. So, let's try to explain to our algorithm what a square mesh is using the fitness function criteria. Before optimizing for a square shape, let's ensure that the resulting graph is generally viable or normal. We should discard degenerate, fragmented, and non-planar graphs. The fitness function for such graphs is set close to 0. Once we introduce this rule, evolution finds a simple trick. It builds long branching structures, or trees, because it's easy. But a mesh requires an internal structure, not outward extensions. To achieve this, we will introduce another criteria, to give priority to the creation of internal regions, otherwise known as graph cycles, so that the structure will no longer be purely branch-like. After this, our algorithm will begin growing different cycles, but our goal is squares. Therefore, we tell the algorithm that we need more cycles with exactly 4 edges. But we also allow imperfectness, for example triangles or other polygons, to give evolution room to maneuver. Well, these rules should be enough, right? But it turns out that even if only quadrilateral faces, or cycles, are rewarded, it still leads to a chaotic shape because they can connect wrongly. To achieve a mesh structure, we have to introduce a regularity rule. Internally, nodes must have an average of 4 connections to other nodes, except for the outer boundaries, which naturally have fewer neighbors. After this, evolution starts to grow meshes, but they look like long, thin structures that accumulate quads without forming a compact shape. So our final big rule will be a global shape metric that checks whether the squares form a sufficiently thick region in 2 directions, rather than simply an elongated chain. And only after all this work, we finally achieve our goal. Well, more or less, because evolution is still imperfect. This example clearly demonstrates the main principle of evolutionary search. It simply optimizes what it can, and almost always chooses the easiest path. And we need to have a clear understanding of what we ultimately want to achieve in order to use evolution for our purposes. But even a well-designed fitness function does not guarantee that evolution will find the crown of creation. To understand why, let's consider the solution space, all possible gene variants represented on a plane. This space is uneven, and the higher the region, the more successful the organism is. And it often happens that once one evolutionary path has entered a local maximum, it is difficult to escape because all possible outcomes nearby are considered less successful. Since evolution occurs in small steps, it is impossible to instantly jump from one maximum to another, and it reaches a local maximum as a dead end. Ultimately, evolutionary search is a good tool for finding solutions when there is no understanding of how to achieve them. But it doesn't guarantee that it will find a globally superior solution, especially if it stops exploring too early. And our work is to search for mechanisms for maintaining diversity in the population for our experiments. This way, we'll be able to find solutions faster and will make the algorithm parameters more universal for different problems. In the next video, we'll talk about ways to achieve diversity and how the island model helps shape new species. So thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.